It's a real honor to be in a room full of builders, full of dreamers, and people whose hearts are still tied to home, no matter how far we are. And Alex and your team, I know that you are quite a lean team today, but well done. And thank you all sponsors that have made this day possible. For those who don't know me, I go by Fiona or Farha Karibuni. Now, every generation has a responsibility. You see, our grandparents built villages, our parents fought for education, and here we are, a generation living abroad, carrying hopes of two worlds, the homeland that raised us with its values, and the global stage that surrounds us today. We're living the dreams of our ancestors. So before we talk about wealth, I want us to take a moment for gratitude. Gratitude for the sacrifices made so that we could be here today. And gratitude for the opportunities that we've had, as well as gratitude for all the people in our lives who have played a big as well as small role. Because you see, what we appreciate appreciates. And if you build wealth with gratitude, or rather if you build wealth without gratitude, then that becomes very difficult. But if you build wealth with gratitude, it's so much easier, and it's filled with blessings. And I think given where the world is today, we could all use some grace. I think you'd agree. So moving on, I'd like us to reframe money. Money shouldn't be just about survival, but rather a responsibility, and let me explain. Many of us here know what living with very little feels like. We all know what it means to stretch that shilling, to send what we can back home, and to do what it takes just to survive. And for many of us in the diaspora, that is a story, or was a story of our first paycheck, and it's a story of us today. Now, we work hard, and even before we think about ourselves, we send money home for rent, for food, for hospital bills. And at the time, it might feel small, just sending a few notes across borders. But think about what that really meant. A child has finished school because of the money that we've sent home. Our family has had food to eat for the month. We paid bills. Your parents are taken care of. And sometimes a single transfer can keep the entire household afloat. And that is quite powerful. So I'd like you to clap for yourselves, each and every one of you. But here's the reality of what we call black tax. How many of you have heard of black tax? This unspoken expectation to constantly send money home. The other side of sending money home. It can feel quite draining, and if you're not careful, it traps us. And instead of building, we end up patching holes. And instead of investing, all we're doing is just rescuing situations and circumstances. You see, most of what we send home is used for consumption, and studies actually have shown that very little of what we send home actually goes for growth. Sending money has indeed kept families alive, or has allowed for dignified burials, yes, and these sacrifices matter. But if we only give reactively, and if we only operate in the black tax mode, then we'll stay stuck in survival mode for the rest of the time that we live abroad. So we ought to change that mindset. We need to move from being reactionary to building with strategy. And we need to move from guilt mode to growth mode. Money can't just be about getting through the day. Money is an amana, it's a trust, it's a responsibility. And not just to support, but we have a responsibility to grow it. So it is important to put systems in place that reduce these dependencies. So let us invest in knowledge, let us invest in skills, let us invest in businesses and in structures that do last. And you see, when you stop seeing yourself as someone who's just hustling, just to make ends meet, and start seeing yourself as a steward of what's in your bank balance, no matter how small or large, things start to change. And you stop chasing money to survive, but you put it to work. You see, every dirham, every shilling must have a job to secure our family, to grow your future, and to strengthen our community. So I want to share something simple but powerful. 4 pillars of wealth that every one of us needs to stand on. The first pillar is protection. And the lovely lady earlier spoke about an element of protection. This is so important because one bad season, one illness, one accident can wipe out years of hard work. So it's important to protect what we work for. So I'd like you to ask yourself, if you fell ill today and you couldn't show up to work for days, for weeks, for maybe months, or the breadwinner in your family was not able to provide, have you mitigated yourself against these events? Or are you one incident away from a financial disaster? Ask yourself that. You need to ask yourself, do you have adequate health cover? Do you have an emergency fund? Or basic estate planning structures such as wills, trust funds, power of attorney, depending on what your circumstances. You need to think about these before you actually need them, because then it's too late. The second pillar I want to talk to you about today is growth. You see, money that sits still in our bank account is losing value. That's guaranteed. So money must be nurtured in order to multiply. And you do this through investments, and some of the wonderful people today have actually discussed some of these investments. It must be nurtured through businesses, and somebody here has mentioned a side hustle that he's doing. Thank you so much. You need to put your money to work, and I'm very grateful for those that have shared the opportunities, but I'm sure a few more people will be coming up to share more opportunities as well. And I applaud you guys here for taking time to come here to listen to these opportunities. But one advice that I want to share when it comes to growth is when you are thinking about investments, make sure that you know what your goals are and match your investments with the right goal. Because you need to think about, several things. 2 things in particular. One is the risk profile, and 2 is the timeline. So for example, you don't want to be buying property from Centum with money that you need for school fees next year. Whenever there's a mismatch in investment, it's not the investment that has a problem, it's just how you've matched your investment with the opportunity. So it's important for us to explore short-term, more liquid investments for your short-term goals, and to take more risk for longer-term investments. And then the third pillar I want to discuss today is preservation. So wealth isn't measured by what you earn. I'm sure we've all heard that. But it's measured by what you keep. It's important to track it, it's important to respect it, and don't waste it. Don't live beyond your means. It's important to have a budget. And you don't need to follow trends. Now, just because Adam bought X and Sarah invested in Y, good for them. It may or may not be the right thing for you. So don't put money into somebody else's pocket without really thinking it through. What you don't want is to lose money. And what you don't monitor, you basically lose. Now, the fourth pillar is transfer. Because the true test of wealth is not what we enjoy alone in this lifetime, but it's what outlives us. We need to teach our children these values. It's important for us to put our affairs in order and to build systems that will continue well after we're gone. Or we risk our families fighting. And I'm sure that is not what we want. I always tell my clients, it's important to simulate what life would look like the day you pass away. the moment your family hears the sad news. Because one thing that is guaranteed is I am dying, and each one of us will also pass away at some stage. So it's important to think about our funeral, our children's care, our debts, our properties, our business, and whether we put structures in place, such as a will, such as a trust, a foundation, in order to handle the next steps. And are we teaching our children the businesses that we have? Because it's important, otherwise we run the risks of all our efforts eroding. So protection, growth, preservation, and transfer of wealth are not just theory concepts, but the difference between wealth that ends with you and wealth that outlives you. So ask yourself, what do you want? What do I currently have? And what do I need to do? And then be very intentional with speaking with the right experts to guide you through this process. You see, our grandparents built villages because they had purpose. When our parents fought for education, they had vision. And we have both. We've got opportunity and access. And the question is, what will we do with it? We are the generation that can turn these remittances that we keep hearing about into investments, into ideas, turn ideas into enterprises, and efforts into huge, huge impact. So as you walk out of this room tonight, remember this: wealth is not what you have, but it's what you build, it's who you lift, and it's what you leave behind. Asante Sana, thank you.